مرحبتين. Alright, so I've opened up Portrait Studio, and one of the images I saw posted on the Google community was this picture here. Okay, it has a lot of issues, but one of the biggest issues that I find is there isn't enough shine when we paint. When we paint skin, skin isn't a mattified object. So let's go into Portrait Studio. Skin doesn't look like that. Skin has a reflectivity to it. So the shininess, that's shininess, reflectivity kind of move together, but we separated them on Portrait Studio because sometimes the shininess without reflectivity, you kind of need to move them hand in hand because it's about how wet, not just the fact that the skin might be wet, but how wet. So we get to decide how reflective, what kind of, is it oil or is it water, or is it a mix of both, or is it the surface texture? So both of these play a role in why skin is reflective, the material that's causing it to be reflective and how wet that material is. So oily versus really oily, and slightly sweaty or wet versus really, really sweaty or mermaid, just covered in water. Alright, so let's raise these together. So the shininess goes up and the reflectivity go up. This is typically what your skin should look like. This is what skin looks like. This is the healthy oil level of skin right here, where we have these bits right here that represent how the skin catches light very, very sharp. The specular is focused. Now, even if we lower the skin value, this is consistent because reflectivity is reflectivity. This doesn't go away if I bring the skin value all the way down. The skin is still going to be reflective. So this is a little bit light. Let's go into something a little more neutral. If I take these down, this is an unnatural matte. This is not real. This does not behave. Skin doesn't behave like that. And so this is really, really reflective. It's reflecting the gray around, but there isn't enough shininess to move with it. And when we raise that shininess up with the reflectivity, skin starts to behave a little bit more like skin. Skin is not suede. It's not leather. It will reflect stuff. There's a lot of reflected surroundings. There's a lot of oil in it. So what I need to do here is bring that in. I've also modeled the model here to have hooded eyes, and I wanted to talk about how to draw hooded eyes. So the eye hood, this is off and this is on. By the way, if any of you want to know what this is Portrait Studio, reference generating software that my team and I developed. Okay, so this hooded eye, first of all, the way that the light shines on it. So I'm going to look through all of these and then jump into the paint over. The way the light moves on it, it catches the light very quickly, because if you can see from the side, the difference between a hooded eye hood, and a not hooded eye is the fact that there is no extra little bump here. It goes straight from elevation to depression, hill, valley. When we throw in a eye hood, which is the Asian eye, suddenly we have hill, hill, valley. And that's just it. That's the formula to drawing a successful Asian eye. We need to show that this is a consistent hill. So if this is going to be bright and then suddenly we jump into this depression over here, this makes no sense. Why is this person only having hooded eyes on one side? So the elevation is wrapped around, so does this. The highlight also wraps around, just like that. And then looking at this again, we see that this whole area here is a depression. So hill, depression, slight depression, not that severe, and then hill, and then depression, and then back to hill for the cheekbone. So this is exactly what we do. These words that we're using, these are the values that we use. And these values are each a word, and they represent different degrees of depression or elevation. So we can't, what you did before, you used this value all the way over here. This is wrong. This is a hill. And this is the true valley right here of the eye socket. So don't misuse the words in your work. The words meaning the values. If you're using one word to describe one kind of elevation, and then you use it again for something that doesn't even have that severe a depression or elevation, then you're misusing your values and your spectrum becomes confused. Alright, so let's take a look again at this model. Let's rotate it back towards us. So the light that you should be memorizing is this top-down light with the light coming from above. The arrow is indicating that the light is coming from above. And this is exactly what we're following. The high points, we're trying to find all these high points and slowly building up with a radial blending. So when I say radial blending or radial highlight, I basically mean this. Instead of painting from one edge to the next and then, creating these gradients, these ongoing gradients in your work. Who here does nothing but gradients? Who here shades from one edge of the picture to the next? Pretty much all of us do this. What I mean is when we shade something, I want us to radial shade. So let's say this is the base tone and we get our highlight. We kind of make it emanate, leading to the highest point. So now this is radial blending. Follow it with some hard edges, and what we get is something that really reads as a three-dimensional object now. The silhouette has to match the kind of shape we're drawing. But look at that. Look how quickly we made something feel like it's really, really three-dimensional. This might as well have been a form study or a 3D model, because we're shading radially. The first brush stroke goes in this big with this much opacity. The second one goes in this big, the third one, fourth one. Slowly they eventually lose opacity, but the more we layer these, the higher this and the brighter this gets, this whole area. So what does radial blending do for you? What are the benefits of radial blending? It keeps you thinking about the z-axis. You're always blending toward a high point. And this is the only way to achieve a highlight. If we are highlighting on a, one second please. Alright, so if we're highlighting from one edge to the next, and this is what we do, and everyone is guilty of it, shading from one edge. Why? Because we still think in lines, so we had this old outline, and we're just shading in gradients. If our highlight is always going to be slowly reached at the edge of the gradient, which is nearing the edge one side of the wall instead of radially, it will always point to the fact that this edge here, where this line used to be, is the highlight. That's wrong. This is not responding to the light source. The light source wants to shine on this part of the object, but we don't know how to shade like that, so our form suffers. Our sculpting suffers. And what we need to do now is relocate all of these highlights, these highlight spots that I call them, and I'll point to them all in a second. And these are the areas that we will shade radially. Alright, so the light spots are as follows. This whole area right here, this on switch. Alright, so right here, upper lip and the chin. And this is exactly what we see in this model. No matter the kind of face we have, so let's have a little bit of fun. No matter the kind of face, as long as it's got nose, eyes, and mouth, it's going to have this pattern on it, this kind of lighting, with these highlights being on the highlights. The highest points. Why? Because if we rotate the image from the side, these are the highest points, highest altitude. Alright, so this is where we know. We know we're supposed to build up radially. We're supposed to layer our highlight shade, our highlighter color, slowly reaching the highest point. We do this everywhere else, and we decide, okay, listen, not all of them are going to be the same kind of highlight, because I can't use the same word value for all of these elevations. All of these are at different heights. So because they're at different heights, they have different highlight levels. They're not all the same brightness. But over here, and over here, they all seem to be the same brightness. So these are the things wrong with this image. And I'm going to be applying all these changes here. Is everybody with me? Darken is what I'm trying to do. Alright, so we're going to build up these highlights slowly. As for the highlight, the kind of shadow you have here, so let's go back to our load 2, load 3, load 4, no? Alright. No, it is. Okay, so let's go back to this girl right here. Okay. This camera rotation is way too fast. female eye hood. Raise that all the way up. Okay, so now we're building up. As we squint our eyes, when you squint your eyes, you can really catch where the lightest area is. It's this entire area. But if we change the rotation, so the different direction that this light source is coming from, and let's throw in a diffuse, just so that we don't have this craziness. Okay. This is just so that it diffuses those intense shadows we had. Skin value can be a little darker. We see that the shadows here are not symmetrical either. Over here you had very, very symmetrical shadows. Everything seems to be top-down light here and here, but the nose is the only thing that has light coming in from the side. So that's another error. So I'm going to be fixing that too. Alright, so lots of use out of Portrait Studio. I'm so happy about it. It's really helping me teach. And if you want your own copy, just go to istebrak.com and you can download your copy. Alright, so I'm casting the shadow down to respect the kind of light source we have here. This should be the one you memorize. Everything else is going to be a little bit too complicated. You really still have so much to learn left about form and the kinds of values that you're using. It's just going to be too complicated to add in a specific kind of light source. No, it's not darken that I want to know. So the best thing for you right now is just to focus on this top-down light source situation, which means that there is going to be a lower beard. So if we can take a look at this again, we see there's a kind of like a general darkness in this lower half. If you take a look at it, all the real contrast happens at the top and then on the on switch. Everything that is an on switch has like a beard around it. That's why I call it the beard. If we miss it, we miss one of the most core shadows, the strongest core shadows on the face, which is the half core shadow, which generates the face into a three-dimensional geometric object, which it is. Sometimes we forget that the head itself needs to be shaded. We're so busy shading eyes and noses and mouths, we forget about the head. Okay. So, normal. So I'm just going to fix this edge work here. Sorry I'm not looking at the comments. I will look at them in a moment. Alright, so I'm going to start building up these highlights, and I'm going to do it exactly as I showed you, radially. Just slowly building them up. I really want to establish these shadows first though. So half the hood should be shadow because that's where it starts going down, back down toward a cast shadow. Alright, so let's get our highlighter color. This is how intense I want it to be. I'm going to set it at 100%. I have transfer on in my brush settings. So view, window, brush presets. Is it brush presets? No, it's just brush. And I have shape dynamics on pen pressure and transfer on pen pressure. So please turn those on if you want this same effect as my brush. So what I'm doing now is I'm going to start with the nose, which is the brightest spot, and I'm going to cast my first line. Second, my brush is shrinking. Third, fourth, fifth. Look at that shine. That's so three-dimensional. It really respects the fact that this object is being sculpted. So at this point, you're sculpting with your brush. So my brush is shrinking. Do I still need that massive size from my brush anymore? No. Same thing. First line, second, third. I'm using open and close brackets to shrink my brush as I go. You need to shrink your brush. Use open and close square brackets. Please. Use them. Don't use this. Please, please don't be this. Don't do this. Don't do it. Okay. So alright, so the first line, second, third, and so where do you ask, where do I place the, where do I start bringing in that radial shade? You bring it in the highest point. You got to look at a reference. The references show you where these highest points happen. So cheekbones, forehead, nose, lip, other lip, chin, anywhere that sticks out. That's where you start building up that highlight toward, thinking about the light source, still thinking about the light source. The sides of the nose shouldn't be that dark. Look at what's happening. We're really, really sculpting now. Alright, so again, first brush stroke, second, third, it's shrinking as I do it. It's a little bit too bright because I'm trying to demonstrate. I'll balance everything in and make this match its local shade, but this is what I want you guys to see. Same thing with the cheekbones, the upper lip. Stretching from the cheekbones down. First, second, third, fourth, until I slowly reach a high point. Is everybody with me? What does painting with radial blending or this radial buildup of your shade do for your painting? Can anyone answer that question? Can anyone summarize what I've been saying? This edge here, I'm not going to blend it so much because this is a bone. This is a bone influenced edge. So I don't want to show it as if it's fat, which is what it is down here. Okay. You could have looked up a better reference for eyebrows, but this also works just fine. It's just that it would have been a little bit more natural. It kind of seems like a very general shape instead of an eyebrow that actually has an arc to it. But I've seen eyebrows that look like this. But you're the designer. Ideally, you want to design the ideal. Gives it depth, exactly. What else? What else happens? So this is an awesome technique. This is my technique. I use this all the time because what's amazing about it is that you can use it to its opposite. So this is something that I call the cave. I showed you the pearl technique. Now I'm going to show you the cave. The cave is the same thing. We're building up the shadow. Our brush is shrinking. I'm just using my pen pressure to shrink the brush. But we're slowly making a cavity. So now this looks like a nose that you can very well pick now. Looks like a nostril. Yay! Okay? This the exact opposite applies for shadows. Alright? Just remember. In order to make a nostril that really feels like it can be picked, you have to use this technique. Provide true skin shine. So this isn't just for shiny skin. This is just for shading skin generally. Shiny skin I'll show you in a second. This is just, the pre-lesson to adding the shine properly. We first have to know how to create the elevations properly. Alright, so what's next now is just adding the shadows in exactly like that. So 1, 2, 3, and now we have an edge, which is a little bit too dark, but I just want to demonstrate. 2, 3. Alright, so I'm probably just going to make it 2 strokes only. Okay, so you kind of intended on the light to be from the side, but I think it's better for you to just focus on the front view. Alright, so now for shine. Shine happens in so many different ways. Let me make this head on. Turn this off. Raise this brightness. Just turn up the ambience. Okay, so the shine happens in areas that are in elevation as well as areas that are oily. So these areas here, this whole T-zone is very oily. So when we start adding in that extra shade, so some people don't want to depend on Dodge Tool to do it for them. On grayscale you can get away with using Dodge Tool, but when you use colors, Dodge Tool can be very tricky. So exactly the same thing. My brush shrinks as I add in that really, really strong highlight all the way up. Really feels like her nose has an elevation to it. Same thing over here. Just a couple of lines. I'm bringing in the shine, that dewy texture that happens on skin. Just along here and on the sides. And there is skin texture. The type of skin changes. So the skin under the eyes is very different from the skin around the face. It's like an accordion, as I always say. What we want to do is not blend these together. I'll bring down I'm just making it severe so you guys can see it, but I'll tone it down in a second. And again, same thing, the exact opposite of the highlight, just using a shadow, slowly reaching the edges of the nose, and my brush shrinks as I lay in that color. I need to lighten this because this whole socket shadow is raised all the way up with hooded eyes. It's not completely dark all the time. Right, so this area here, I'm going to go and connect it into the lower eyelids, which also are a little bit hooded. The lower eyelid and the ever seen this, this kind of symbol for Asian eyes? It's, in South Park they do that. I'm sorry, but this is used for a reason. This originates from something. It originates from both an upper and lower hood on that Asian eye. So both areas, both eyelids, both creases have been filled with fat. I read somewhere that it's because those areas, the type of weather on that side of the world or something like that, caused the evolution or adaptation of this kind of eye to protect from windy weather. I'm not sure if that's accurate. I really don't know if I can quote it, but I'm not sure. So I'm adding this highlight under where we usually have a shadow. So the model pretty much has a hooded anyway on the lower area, so we don't really have one in there. And then we shade the eyeball that is inside as well. Okay. So if you wanted to go for an Asian eye, this is one way to do it, both upper and lower hood. And you need to show that the skin tone or the skin type around the eye in this area has a higher specular, so it shines way brighter. And this elevation up here should be a little bit more obvious. You shouldn't share values. You shouldn't share word values. Can anyone explain to the rest of you what a word value is? I've explained it before. Does anyone remember? Filter, liquify. I'm going to add in a arc to bring in that beauty. When we lose the arc, we lose the beauty. It's just, we have to learn these tropes. A lot of people were complaining about my last video saying, oh, well, I'm a really feminine looking man and I don't agree with what you're saying because you're basically telling people that we're ugly or not to draw us. I'm just like, Jesus, man, calm down. People just love being offended, but these are the tropes that we learn. We have to learn them. It's just, it's the truth, fight it or not fight it. Bang your head against the wall. It's the truth at the end of the day, no matter how much protesting you're going to do. Arched eyebrows are a symbol of beauty. Women go for them. Makeup artists always try to implement an arched brow in any kind of makeover they're going to do. I worked in makeup. I know these as reading over into the world of beauty. They're not just an art, or they're not just my taste. They read. So this is stuff that's used, the stuff that applies in the real world. Because these are beauty tropes universal between art and the real world. We're still trying to make stuff look pretty. The head is a little bit long. So I'm just going to bring down that head. And I'm going to bring that jawline a little bit lower, because the jaw is where we start adding in the lower part of the head. No part of you moves other than the jaw. When you eat, when you talk, it's only your jaw moving. It's not your whole head. So I want to show that this corner is right here, sticking out, and this is where it connects. This is where we see that corner happen. Tucking in the temples. And just thinking about the shape of the cranium, that skull area. Tucking in the cheekbones. Alright. You can't use the same word for different meanings. Exactly. So you can't use the same value for different depressions and elevations. Do Asians like arched eyebrows as well? Everybody likes arched eyebrows. Everybody does. There's no, some people here and some people don't. Of course, there are minor tastes, or the minority might have a different taste, but the majority appreciates the high cheekbone. Look up Miss China. All right, I'm gonna look up Miss China. I don't know who she is. I don't know what she looks like, but I'm sure if she doesn't have an arched brow, you guys can laugh at me. But Miss China Beauty images. Where is she? Yay, arched eyebrows. Woo! This arched eyebrow is really important. If she doesn't have it, her makeup sure will give it to her. All right? This arched brows just keeps the eyes lively looking. If the brows look masculine, so male model. Male models just have these flat brows with zero arch, but we still think they're beautiful, don't we? It's just how things work. Female bone structure and male bone structure vary. Alright, so let's just get these naked guys off the screen. So trust me when I tell you, you'll get some beauty, you'll appreciate your painting a little bit more if you see a little bit more beauty in it, and these eyebrows you will benefit from them. Alright, I'm going to use Dodge Tool just to rush the process a little bit, but it's the same thing. I'm shrinking my brush. The closer I get, I need to lower this all the way down. It's just so intense. A little bit more shine the closer we get to. I'm looking at my navigator constantly. My eyes are on the navigator, thinking about how shiny her skin might be. The nostrils you've drawn need a little bit more work. They seem very, very symbolic instead of actual structures. They're also a little bit dark. You're using value words for things that don't have that kind of work on them. I'm also going to give the cheeks a little bit of dew, and there's something in makeup called shimmer that women use just to make its only use. It's shimmer. It's like a whole fucking bucket of it that you can buy from MAC. And its only purpose in makeup is just bringing in this shine right here and putting shine under the eyebrows. This is another use for it. It's just for shine. It's called shimmer, and you can just place it under your eyebrows just so that your eyebrows look more arched. Okay? Believe me when I tell you how to make a woman look beautiful, because I wear makeup, I've done makeup, and these are the rules. So your shadow of the neck was pointing to the previous light source you had before. Okay, so the shine is starting to happen. It's really nice. And I'm just going to kind of just stipple some areas because skin is textured. It's got little bits of texture on it and pores and uneven levels. And so this skin looks so alive and so dewy and so fresh. So it feels a little bit more active. Part of its light source. It has a texture to it. Or if we look at the before, and we can see we were shading from one edge to the next. The eye was partially Asian. I mean, there are eyes that are hooded but not external, like they're not really sticking out. And we started to shade radially. We weren't shading from one edge of the image to the next. So we have a little bit of radial shading here, so you're definitely on a good path. Okay? Looked like a boy, right? But when we added those eyebrow arcs, it started to look like a girl. When you look at twins and you're trying to tell the difference between the male twin and the female twin, look at the brow of the eyebrow. Just look at the eyebrow, the arch of the eyebrow, I mean. And you'll see that there is definitely a difference between male and female brow arches. Excuse me, I just I just lit my tea really loud. Sorry. I really need some tea. I'm just going to slurp some more, but I'm going to mute. Be right back. Whew, that hits the spot. Green tea for life. Skin is satiny. Skin is satiny. Skin is silky. When it's healthy, skin does behave like that. Definitely. Skin does definitely have that dewy texture on it. If you want to mattify it, I've done this. I've made this stylistic choice where I've mattified skin, but you want to learn how to draw the best version of your image before you, um, I guess the word is, corrupt it with your style. So even when we remove the shine and we leave behind just some of the shade, it still looks nice, and we got back some of that dewy, satiny look. Still looks nice. In fact, more form, more elevation. I really feel like this face is part of a light environment. But if you mattify it all the way and you don't have any highlights, or you have minor highlights, the skin, it still looks nice, but I'd love to see some more shine. So if we get rid of the shine everywhere except the nose, even then it's nice. Just because the nose has that shine, just because I'm showing off that the nose texture is very different from the texture of the chin, because the chin has no severe shine to it compared to the nose, which is very oily. Okay, so some of the shine got taken back, but we still kept some of the major shines. I personally like this one. I've done many times where I've removed the shine completely and kept just the nose in my other paintings. It's really your personal preference. It's hard to decide which one to give you for the paint over. If you want your paint overs back, please message me on Facebook and I'll give you the copies back. So remember that radial shading. It's amazing for sculpting. You're always building up the values until they eventually pop. And yeah. Yeah, healthy skin has that oil to it. When you're dehydrated, your skin looks crusty as fuck. If like take it from me, I used to be anemic. I used to be really anemic, and I used to just have jaundice. My face was just like a bucket of sand. And after I started, getting healthier, and I got older, got healthier, drinking more water every day, I felt better, and my skin got dewier. My skin got healthier, vibrant, and that's what healthy skin looks like. We recognize these things in healthy people. We see them in photographs of healthy people. It is ingrained in our brain that healthy people look like this, or pretty people look like this. You as the artist, unfortunately, are going to have to learn these tropes. Alright, and then after you've perfected and memorized all the rules, then you can start breaking them to your heart's content. Would it be worth learning to Would it be worth learning to sculpt to help with portraits? Of course! Of course! Of course, Natalie! That is life. If it's not helping you draw portraits, what is sculpting helping you? Of course, of course. Get some clay and start sculpting. Get a form study and start sculpting. Get Portrait Studio and start memorizing all of the core shadows and the core lights in the face. It also offers you this model here that helps you think about these general areas, where these areas really spike. So this whole vicinity, this whole upper area of the cube, here, 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 all of these are the light spots, except for this, I guess. But it's still, and you see the beard? You see that beard I'm talking about? The socket is not as dark as anywhere else because this value word is specific for this kind of depression. Whoa, look at that depression. Alright, and it's got male and female, low, medium, and the high poly. And that's it. That's all I had to say for this one. It's a lot. There is no all I had to, but it's a lot. Alright, so staying on that topic, there is still the painting done by, I forget the person's name, I'm so sorry. But here you also have a chance to bring in some shine. If this person is a what is it called? Reptile. We will still get these shiny areas here. So this shine is very helpful. This whole upper area, so you shaded it very, very nicely. But I feel like there's specific shine in each and every single one of these little bumps or scales that could have been used. So you just go through every single one, following the same pattern of the light, the root of the light that the light is taking across the surface. And then again, we're building radially, building the highest point slowly. The smallest brush stroke for the highest point. Write that back to me. Eventually we reach this really high shine area right here. And between areas of high shine and areas of darkness, we have a saturation line. Colors aren't really saturated in darkness, and they're not really saturated in highlight. They only end up being saturated appropriately in midtones, and the midtones sit between the extreme highlights and the extreme cast shadows. Smallest brushstroke for the highest point, yeah. So let's just take a quick look. Now there seems to be a light behavior on the skin of this person. Before it felt like a stone sculpture of this object. Now it feels like it's the actual texture. It's because you don't know how to shade the kind of, you won't know how to shine, you won't know how to make something shiny unless you know what kind of texture it is. Is it shiny at all? Does it have micro texture that minimizes the specular potential? What kind of object are we dealing with? And if we think about, like, let's say crocodile skin, all right, really, really high shine, just really reflective right here. Yeah, it has micro texture, but the way it behaves with the light, it just has points of high shine. And then skin, what is it called? Snake. Sneaky snake. Snake skin. Also lots of shine. Snake skin is admittedly way more reflective and smooth than a crocodile skin. And then the turtle skin. Also really shiny, really reflective. This one's a good example. Just trying to find ones that were shot in sunlight, because this guy is completely bathed in sunlight. Over here, pretty reflective. If you squint your eyes, you can track down where that highlight is happening. Just squint your eyes right now with me. You can see that it's just traveling across this way. And then the cast shadows are really sharp, indicating that the sunlight is very strong. Okay, so before, after. Another thing that could afford some shine is this armor right here. Stupid tablet. Never buy an Intuos Pro. Just get the Intuos, the normal one. It used to be a bamboo with no buttons on it. Useless hunk of garbage. Just adding that, and you see I'm slowly shrinking my brush until I reach the highest point. Chill, Dodge. Okay, and I'm going to bring in the saturation. The saturation line is on either side of the specular, so I couldn't saturate the painting from before, the Asian girl, because I didn't have any color to work with, but here there's definite saturation that happens on either side. And before, after. A lot more surface texture behavior, a lot more interaction with the light source. This gold piece right here could get some shine on it. Okay, and maybe a cast shadow happening just along here. And a new layer so I can fix it. Alright. So that thing that I showed you about radial blending, that's a technique. And it's a good technique because it works from, all good techniques stem from physics. Write that back to me. All good techniques have some kind of physics behind them, which is true because the highest point gets the eventual highest shade. And everything works from there. Okay. What else would I change? I think that's pretty much it. Maybe some extra shine here, even though it's in the shadow. Just some spike in the gold of his necklace. Everything seems to be losing detail down here. Altogether, beautiful job. I would darken the eyes because it'll just complete the light source situation that we're dealing with. Because his eyes seem a little bit bright. And I would only erase away the the bit of the eyes that has the shine. Maybe the bit around it. Whoa. Just seemed to be a little too bright for the light source. Just really bright. Okay. And finally, this eye is in the wrong spot. I would move this, because if we follow the symmetry line like this eye needs to be up here. So it would be hidden away, I guess, eventually by this brow. So before it was a little low, yeah? After. Okay. So before, after. He is a little bit close to the edge of the canvas. Like if this was cinematic, this wouldn't be a good frame to keep the camera still on. Maybe this could be one frame of many frames of a transition, like a panning. But I really recommend that you reorganize this so that he's a little bit more toward the center, or maybe a little bit smaller. Something a little like this, where he's in this position. Just like that. That would work a little bit better for your canvas. He's just zoomed in a little too close, and I kind of feel like, you know, the roof is going to fall over my head because it feels a little claustrophobic. Okay. Before, after. Thinking about shine is you thinking about the light source. And if you're thinking about the light source, you're doing a good job. If you're ignoring the shine in a texture, you're ignoring the light source. Write that back to me. If you're ignoring the shine in a texture, you're ignoring the light source. And if you're ever ignoring the light source, you're not sculpting. And if you're not sculpting, you're not drawing well. Even when you're sketching, even when all you have is one piece of newsprint and some charcoal, you can still sculpt. Imagine yourself not as an artist, a 2D artist, but as a sculptor that ran out of clay and all he has left is a pencil and a paper. All you have left are 2 dimensions. You lose a dimension. If you're not thinking about the light source, you're losing all the dimensions. Forget about sculpting. Forget about drawing realistically. Forget about realistic tones and realistic colors and realistic saturation and cast shadows and all that good stuff that sits in really, really good drawings. If you're not thinking about the light source. No, it's not about don't ignore shine and texture and such. It's exactly as Free for Fire says it. If you're ignoring the shine, you're ignoring the light source. Thank you, Natalie. How long have I been painting and drawing for? A really long time. Just a long time. I've always held a pencil, even when we were young and we were in the refugee camps. And I used to remember drawing, either on the sand or with like a pen and a piece of cardboard. So I've always been into art, but as for taking it seriously, or when I first got my Photoshop and when I first got my tablet, these are all different answers. So you're gonna have to be more specific. All right, so I love you guys too. Thanks everyone for watching. Have a great day, guys. Bye bye.